Hello crafty friends, it's Heather Rui here and I'm back with another video. Today we are going to create 3 cards using stencil sets. So let's start with this card. I used the interlocking circle stencil set to create the background. This set includes 4 different stencils. You can use them separately or all together like I did for this example. I applied a different color of ink through each to create a vibrant background. However, you could always go less bold with softer colors. Notice that I started with a 6x6 piece of cardstock, the same size of the stencil. This gives me the opportunity to cut out the portion that I want to use on my A2 size card. You can always cut the piece with your trimmer, but I like to use a basic rectangle die to help me visualize what the piece will look like and get a perfect cut. Next, I cut the panel using one of the Nested Domes Arches die. I adhered the center portion of the die cut to the blue mat and adhered the frame down using foam tape for dimension. This is one of my favorite ways to showcase a background. It keeps the pattern as a whole, but adds some interest. I stamped and colored the floral image off screen from the Spring Stem stamp set and used the coordinating die to cut it out. I adhered it inside the window with foam tape and added a couple of sentiment strips in the top right corner from the reverse well wishes sentiment strips. I also added a few die cut hearts that were cut from the Mini Hearts party die. I didn't have the right shade of yellow cardstock, so I colored a piece of white cardstock with a yellow Copic marker so it would match my colored floral image perfectly. I added crystal glaze on top for some shine. Also, I wanted to mention about the placement of the hearts. I get a lot of questions about where to place embellishments. I follow these 3 tips. First, I like to use an odd number of embellishments. Second, I like to use different sizes of embellishments mixed together. This helps balance everything and add interest. And third, I like to place them to form a triangle so it's pleasing to the eye. To finish up, off camera, I stamped the flap of a yellow envelope with the Daffodil Field background stamp. Okay, moving on to the next card. This time we will create a quick and easy shaker card. Instead of using white cardstock as a base, I wanted to show that you can also add color to black cardstock. To do this, I used Distress Oxide inks and applied ink through the 3 stencils that come in the layered confetti stencil set. I chose Distress Oxide inks because of their pigment property. The pigment ink will sit on top of the paper, so the color stays more vibrant on dark cardstock as opposed to a dye ink that will absorb into the paper and you wouldn't be able to see the color. I cut out the portion I liked using the largest rectangle from the basic rectangles die set and heat set the piece off camera since Distress Oxide inks stay wet longer than dye inks. Once it was dry, I embossed the balloon background die on top for some subtle texture. To emboss a die, you add an embossing mat in your die cut machine, add your paper and die on top, and finish off the sandwich with an embossing plate. It makes an impression of the die instead of cutting it out. To create the shaker, I used an A2 shaker cover. I laid the ink piece inside the cover and sealed up 3 edges. I left the top portion open so I could fill it up with the end of the rainbow sequins. There is a plastic film on top that you have to remove, and then I added a die cut sentiment that I cut from the basic box card Happy Birthday die using gold matte cardstock. I adhered the shaker piece down off camera to the card base using strong tape. I'm a big fan of these shaker pouches because it makes creating shaker cards super quick and easy. I also used one of the stencils to add a pattern to the flap of the envelope to tie everything together. For the final card, we will be using another colored cardstock, but for this example, I wanted to show you that you can use your dye inks on colored cardstock as well. Off camera, I applied white pigment ink through one of the stencils in the layering CLOVER stencil set. Once it was dry, I applied green dye ink on top. The white pigment ink gives it a base to keep the color of the dye ink more vibrant. Next, I applied green glitter glitz gel called Perfection through the second stencil in the set to give the background a bit of sparkle. These mini glitz glitter gels from Simon Says Stamp come in a set of 6 fun rainbow colors, and they're perfect to pair up with your stencils. Once it was dry, I added a die cut that I cut using the Linking Lucky Clovers die. This set includes 2 pieces, the clovers and the shadow for the clovers. I also added a sentiment strip from the Reverse Lucky Sentiment Strip Pack. I originally was going to use the white strips, but switched to the black one because I thought it stood out more. And just like the other 2 cards, I wanted to decorate the envelope, so I stamped the flap of a green envelope with the shamrock background stamp. Before I go, I have a few video notes to wrap everything up and hopefully leave you inspired. Try using colored cardstock as your base when applying ink through a stencil. In today's example, I shared how to do this with oxide inks that have a pigment property, as well as dye inks. Try using multiple stencils on one background. In today's examples, I used multiple stencils on each background because they were sets. However, use what you have. Combine the various stencils in your stash to create new looks. It's a great way to stretch the use of your stencils. Try stepping up your stencil layering by adding gels to a layer or do some dry embossing on top of a stencil design. Lastly, don't forget the envelope. You will be hearing me say this a lot in my videos because I think it's such an easy way to tie everything together. We spend so much time on our cards, so let's show the envelope a little love too. Thank you so much for spending some time with me today. You can find links to the supplies I used on today's cards in the description below, as well as a link to my blog post with much more information. Thank you so much for watching. I'll be back soon with another video. Have a great day. Bye.